I got fired for stealing, but what they didn't know was that I secretly owned the company. Emma, eating at your desk again? My supervisor, Laura, stood next to me, arms crossed, her usual judgmental look plastered on her face. Her sharp eyes scanned the messy financial reports on my desk as I quickly finished my lunch. The tension between us was thick. Someone has to get this work done, I replied, brushing a crumb off my thrift store dress, a $30 find that reminded me of my humble beginnings. Laura always looked down on me for it. Or is it because you can't afford the fancy restaurants where the rest of us eat? Her voice was dripping with sarcasm, and her smirk made it clear she was trying to provoke me. I just smiled calmly, refusing to let her get to me. If only Laura knew I owned 60% of the company, she'd probably pass out on the spot. My name is Emma Carter, I'm 34, and 3 years ago, I inherited most of the shares in the company from my dad, but instead of taking a top position, I decided to start at the bottom as a financial analyst. I wanted to learn how the company really worked. Only 3 people knew the truth: my lawyer, Sarah, my accountant, and my brother, Jake. Not even my husband, Mark, the CEO, knew my secret. Emma, Laura's sharp voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I need the Anderson Project analysis on my desk this afternoon, she demanded, leaving no room for argument. I frowned. That report isn't due until next week. Well, I need it today. Is that a problem? She stared me down, daring me to say no. Not at all, I replied, pushing my frustration aside. What Laura didn't know was that the Anderson Project was my idea, a plan to restructure the company and cut unnecessary jobs, including hers. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah popped up. The board wants an emergency meeting. They're talking about the Anderson Project. Should we move forward? I paused, my fingers hovering over the screen. Something about this felt wrong. Wait, let's hold off for now, I typed back. As I got back to work, I saw Mark walking through the office, looking as confident as ever. We'd met 2 years ago at a charity event, where I'd pretended to be just another guest. He'd been drawn to my humble, hard-working image. Marriage had been his idea. He liked the idea of being married to someone simple and dedicated. What he didn't know was that I'd been quietly evaluating his performance as CEO this whole time. Mark, Laura practically ran up to him, her excitement obvious. Can we talk about the Anderson Project? Of course, Laura, let's go to my office. Mark didn't even glance at me as he walked past, completely focused on her. 2 hours later, Laura came back, looking smug. Emma Carter, pack your things, she announced, clearly enjoying herself. I looked up, confused. What are you talking about? We found issues with your reports. You've been leaking confidential information about the Anderson Project, she said, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. That's ridiculous, I shot back, my anger rising. Is it? She smirked. We have proof you accessed files you weren't supposed to. Of course, I'd accessed them, I'd created them. Laura, this is a misunderstanding. Security, she cut me off, ignoring me completely. Please escort Emma out of the building. As the guards approached, Mark showed up, pretending to look disappointed. It only made me angrier. Emma, sweetheart, he said, shaking his head, I can't believe you'd do this. I narrowed my eyes, stunned. You too, Mark? As CEO, I can't make exceptions, not even for my wife, he said coldly. Laura's smirk grew wider. Thief, she sneered, you'll never work in this city again. As they led me to the lobby, I heard her sweet-talking Mark. Now that you're divorcing her, how about dinner? We can discuss my promotion. Sitting in my car in the parking lot, trying to process everything, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Sarah. Should I reveal your identity now? Not yet. Wait 2 more weeks. Let's see what else they do. I felt a quiet determination settle over me. I put my phone down and started my car, a 2010 Honda Civic. Another deliberate choice to keep up the image Laura and Mark never understood. As I drove away, a small smile crept onto my face. The numbers don't lie, said Alex, my careful accountant, over the phone. His voice was serious but calm. They've stolen almost $2 million, fake consulting fees over the last month. And those fake documents they used to frame you? Laura made them using her admin access. Honestly, it's messy work. Just then, Sarah walked into my private office, a fancy penthouse Mark had never even visited during our marriage. This was my space, filled with the success he'd always taken for granted. The board is freaking out, Sarah said, dropping a pile of files on my desk. The sound echoed in the quiet room. The Anderson project was their best shot at modernizing the company, and they know it. Meanwhile, Mark filed for divorce this morning, saying you acted unethically and broke corporate trust. I couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculous it all was. Perfect. Is everything ready for tomorrow? Sarah asked, her eyes sharp and focused. The emergency board meeting is set for 10 a.m. Everyone's confirmed they'll be there, I replied, feeling a wave of satisfaction. That night, as I sat in my office, my phone buzzed with a message from Mark. I'm sorry it had to end like this, sweetheart, but stealing company information? What were you thinking? The divorce papers are on the way. Let's keep this civil, no need for it to get messy. I stared at the screen, thinking about whether to respond. In the end, I decided it wasn't worth it and left the message unanswered. The next morning, I showed up at the company headquarters wearing a $5,000 Chanel suit, a little luxury I'd avoided during my undercover days. The fabric felt smooth against my skin, a sharp contrast to the chaos that had brought me here. As I walked through the lobby, the receptionist who'd seen me get fired 2 weeks ago froze, her face pale with shock. Miss Carter, you can't be here, she stammered, her eyes wide. Actually, I can, I said calmly. Check with security, I have a meeting with the board. Inside the conference room, Mark sat at the head of the long, shiny table, with Laura beside him, looking more like his partner than an executive. Seeing them together made me feel sick, but I kept my cool. What is she doing here? Laura jumped up from her chair, her face twisted with anger as she looked between Mark and me. Sit down, Laura, I said firmly, this involves you directly. You don't get to tell me what to do. Mark, do something, she yelled, panic creeping into her voice. Mark looked just as confused as she did, his eyebrows furrowed. Emma, the terms of your firing were clear, he started, trying to take control. Before he could finish, Sarah walked in, pushing a cart loaded with thick folders. The mood in the room shifted instantly as she stepped forward, commanding everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, she began smoothly, her voice calm and steady. Let me introduce Emma Carter, majority shareholder of the company and the rightful chairwoman of the board. The room went completely silent. Then, Laura let out a nervous laugh, trying to brush it off. This is insane, she's just a junior analyst, a thief. No, Sarah corrected, unshaken, she's the daughter of James Carter, the company's founder, and for the past 3 years, she's been evaluating this management team's performance. Mark turned pale, the truth hitting him hard. But we're married. Yes, Mark, I replied, my voice steady. I married you to see if you were the leader this company needed. Turns out, you failed miserably. Laura's head snapped toward him, panic flashing across her face. She's lying, Mark, don't listen to her. I ignored her desperate protests, keeping my focus on the board. Would you like to see the evidence of the embezzlement first, or should we start with the fake documents used to fire me? Mark jumped up from his chair, trying to regain control of the situation. There must be some mistake. A mistake? I asked, opening my laptop and turning it toward the board. Are you talking about the $2 million in fake consulting fees? Or maybe the offshore transfer, specifically to an account in the Cayman Islands? Laura grabbed her things, clearly panicked. I have an important meeting. Sit down, I said firmly. I've gone through our finances, studied how every department works, and what I found is really bad. With a click, I brought up a series of charts on the big screen at the front of the room. The bright visuals grabbed everyone's attention. Under Mark's leadership, efficiency has dropped by 40%. A quiet murmur spread through the board members. That's a huge drop, one that's cost us money and opportunities. Costs have tripled in just a year, wasting funds that should have been used for innovation, the very thing this company was built on. Mark scoffed, his face tightening with frustration. That's not fair, I brought in new contracts. Oh, you mean the contracts with Shell, which is secretly owned by your brother? I raised an eyebrow, letting my words sink in. Yes, we found that too, along with a paper trail leading straight back to your office. Sarah, always calm and professional, stepped forward and handed out documents to the board. As you'll see, she said smoothly, her voice confident, the Anderson project, the plan Laura falsely accused me of sabotaging, was meant to uncover these financial problems and protect the company. This isn't just about one person, it's about the future of the company. Mark's face changed, desperation flashing in his eyes, like someone trapped with no way out. Emma, sweetheart, we can fix this. We're husband and wife. Surely you can reconsider. I sighed, his words ringing hollow. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out another folder, and dropped it on the table with a loud thud. About that, I said, letting the moment hang before continuing. Here's my countersuit for divorce. It includes all the evidence of your fraud, theft, and unethical behavior during our marriage. His face went pale, disbelief and fear taking over as my words hit him. You can't do this to me. Oh, like you couldn't defend me when I was falsely accused? Like you couldn't stop stealing from the company, or stay faithful? My voice stayed steady, each word cutting through the tension like a knife. I turned to Laura. She had frozen, her face white. Slowly, she sank back into her chair, her confidence gone as reality hit her. As of now, I announced firmly, Mark Bryant and Laura Anderson are fired. Security will escort you to collect your things and make sure you leave the building. You can't arrest me, Laura screamed as two officers walked in. Panic filled her voice as she pointed at Mark. This was all his idea. My idea? Mark snapped, turning on her angrily. You're the one who faked the documents. As they were led away, I turned back to the board, my resolve stronger than ever. This company was founded by my father with one goal, to create technology that improves lives. Along the way, that vision was lost, buried under greed and ambition. Today, we start over, getting back to our mission and making sure everyone is held accountable. 6 months later, the company was completely different. Thanks to the Anderson project, efficiency had jumped by 70%. We brought in new talent, rebuilt leadership, and reignited our passion for innovation, bringing back the spirit my father had dreamed of when he started the company. The office, once quiet and tense, was now full of energy. People worked together, sharing ideas freely, replacing the fear that used to hold everyone back. Employees who had been too scared to speak up now shared their thoughts with confidence, excited about the future. This wasn't just a workplace anymore, it was a community, united by one goal, to bring the company back to life. Meanwhile, Mark and Laura were facing the consequences of their actions. With their reputations destroyed and their careers over, they were dealing with serious charges of fraud. Their trial was coming up next month, a reminder that every choice has consequences. The board had made it clear, unethical behavior wouldn't be tolerated. The company's integrity was non-negotiable. With their fate sealed, Mark and Laura were on the edge of total ruin, their legacies beyond repair. As for me, I had moved back into my old analyst's office. But it wasn't just an office anymore. Now on the executive floor, it was a symbol of perseverance and hard work. I balanced my responsibilities carefully, focused on guiding the company back to its roots and making sure it thrived in a changing world. Every decision I made was about restoring integrity and building a better future. Some employees still looked at me curiously when they saw me eating lunch at my desk, a mix of respect and admiration in their eyes. To them, I was proof that sticking to your values pays off. I wanted to stay connected to the team, sharing both the wins and the challenges, showing that we were all in this together. My dad used to say, power isn't in the title, it's in the actions. Over the past few months, I'd learned how true that was. Real leadership isn't about having the biggest office, it's about standing strong when things get tough. It's about the choices you make when no one's watching and staying true to your values, even when it's hard. He was right. Sometimes, you have to lose everything, or at least make it look like you have, to really understand who you are. The journey isn't about awards or fancy titles, it's about being real, staying true to yourself, and holding on to what matters. And as for that 2010 Honda Civic? I kept it. It was a small but powerful reminder of where I started, and the lessons I'd learned along the way. It stood for resilience, humility, and knowing that success isn't about luxury or status, it's about the journey and the impact you make. As I looked out my office window, watching the city buzz with life and endless possibilities, I felt a new sense of purpose. Together, we would rise, rebuild, and reclaim who we were, heading toward a future built on integrity and innovation. The road ahead was clear. And I was ready to take it.